Hey everyone, this is Kevin from the chesswebsite.com, and today we're going to be going over the Greek gift sacrifice. This is one of the most common bishop sacrifices that you'll see in chess. Definitely one that you need to understand, knowing when you can and cannot attack your opponent's king. There's lots of different variations that can arrive at a Greek gift sacrifice. We'll go over one. It's from the French defense. Pawn e4, pawn e6, pawn here to d4. And then after d5, knight to c3, pretty common development here. Knight to f6, pawn push forward to attack the knight. Knight swings back here to d7. Knight to f3, continuing to develop for white here. Bishop to b4, getting the dark square bishop involved into the game before they castle on the king side at some point. Bishop here to d3, preparing to castle on the king side. And then the move, which is a huge mistake for black, but it is castle on the king side. And so far, this may look like some pretty common standard moves from both sides, especially in the French defense. But this is a huge mistake for black because white has the move bishop takes here on h7. And this is the Greek gift sacrifice that we're looking at right here. And we'll kind of look at the reasons that this is extremely bad for black, how white can attack this if they take this bishop, if they don't take this bishop as well. So the first one we're going to look at is if they take this bishop here on h7. And then we can play knight to g5. Now, there's two things that this knight's doing here on g5. One, it's attacking the king, yes, but it's also opening up the door for the queen to come here to h5, and that's going to be critical. This knight is also being defended by the bishop here on c1, so that black can't just take with the queen here on g5. That would lose the queen. So from here, king comes back here to g8, queen to h5. You can still see they can't take with their queen. We could just recapture with our queen or our bishop. So maybe instead they recognize that the next move is going to be queen here to h7. That's going to be checkmate. And so maybe they play something like rook to e8, trying to give their king another place to go. But now that rook here on f8 was protecting this square here on f7. White's now free to take on f7. This is not going to end well. It's going to end in a checkmate after king to h8. Queen comes back here to h5. King g8. Queen up here h7. And then there is a checkmate pretty soon after that. So that was the example. If they take the bishop here on h7, it is going to end extremely bad for them. They're either going to give up their queen or they're going to lose the game very quickly. The only other option they have is to play king to h8. Same thing from white. They're going to play knight to g5. Now, this is not check, so they do have that going for them as far as black not being under immediate threat, but they still have to worry about the queen coming here to h5 on the next move. So if they start to look at how can black defend against this, they could think that maybe bishop here to e7 does something and attacks the knight here on g5. Now they have the bishop and the queen here on d8, but this doesn't matter too much because the knight takes here on f7. And this is check, and this is also attacking the queen here on d8. So if they decide, you know what, I'm just going to take this bishop, okay, white just takes the queen, and the game is completely lost for black once their queen is gone. And if they don't take the bishop here on h7, maybe they decide, let's take that knight here on f7. Well, now queen to h5, preparing to move the bishop. There will be a discovered attack here. Not a lot of great ways to protect against this. Maybe knight to f6, trying to open up something, giving up some material. But after the pawn takes here, bishop takes, then bishop to g6, check. The king is forced to move here to g8. And after the bishop takes, it's protected by the queen here as well. King over here to f8. Bishop to g6, and things are lost for black. So that was if they play bishop here to e7. They don't have to play that. They could try something else, maybe g6. All these are going to be bad moves. There's just nowhere for black to run after the Greek gift sacrifice here on h7. Maybe pawn to g6 is an effort here. And yes, that does stop the queen coming here to h5, but everything is so blocked off from black here. You can see none of these pieces, bishop here on c8, knight on b8, rook on a8, can really get involved into the game. This knight here on d7 is pretty locked out. Can't come to f6. It just dies immediately. Bishop here on b4 is completely out of the game, and the queen has a hard time getting involved into the game. It can try just coming here to e7, but it doesn't do a whole lot. And so white has a lot of time that even if they don't come to queen h5, they can just come to queen to g4, knowing that the next move, queen to h4, puts a lot of pressure on their opponent. And maybe they try to get their queen involved into the game because there's no other options here. Queen to e7 can't come to queen to f6 because it just falls to the pawn here. But then maybe just queen to h3. This is still a discovered attack if the bishop moves right here. So maybe they get their king out of the way, king to g7, but then knight to e4. And this is a nice little move here because it prepares, if they ever need to get the knight up here to f6. It opens up the door for the dark square bishop to get involved into the game, and the pawn can't take it right here because that would lose the game immediately. This bishop is protected by the queen. The queen is protected by the bishop here on c1. This is check. King comes back here to h8, and then a very quick checkmate from here. So if we come back after the move knight to e4, we could see some other effort that's just not going to go extremely well. Like, where do they actually move here? They can't come to king to f6. They can't come up here to h8. It's going to be a pretty quick checkmate after bishop takes here on g6 with the discovered attack. They can't really get their knight involved into the game because the pawn can take it as well as the knight. They can always exchange here on c3, but that's just delaying time. None of their pieces can really get involved into the game, so white can pretty much sit back and do whatever they want to with a very strong attack, with the threat of queen to h6 on the next move, because remember, that is defended by the bishop here on c1. So that is the Greek gift sacrifice. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Also, that sacrifice here on h7, if you're curious, when can white sacrifice their bishop here on h7 and when can they not? Because it's not always an option for you. Sometimes it can go extremely poorly. I will have a link at the end of this video that will detail exactly what you should be looking for. It's a video I made a while back, but tells exactly the setup that you should be looking at to know when you can actually take this pawn here on h7 and when you cannot. So definitely, if you like this and you think that this is something that may come up in your game, I highly recommend watching that video as well. It's going to make a lot more sense around why this works and why you may see it often in your games. So definitely check that out. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. I'll see you guys next time.